this whole video and not even gloat about how good it feels to hold your script in your hands. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another creator-owned video. Today we're going to be discussing how to write a comic book script. Before we dive right into it, I'll give you the order of operations in this video. We're going to be talking about the sort of standards in a film script, understanding it between you and your artist, the programs used, the functions of those programs, and then the layout, which is probably what you're here for, and then just a couple other best practices things regarding like page count and length of dialogue. Just wanted to give some context before we get too into the weeds. So the first thing to know about writing comic book scripts is that, unlike their counterparts in film, there's allegedly no such true thing as an industry standard comic book script. And you didn't hear that from me. You heard it from Brian Michael Bendis in his book, Words for Pictures. Pretty prolific author of such works as Ultimate Spider-Man and much more. So I didn't learn script writing from Words for Pictures, but I would definitely advise you read it. In my own experience, long before I ever was collaborating with anybody and really trying to write real comic books, I would open Microsoft Word and I would do like a very basic, very crude basic script that was like character name, dialogue, action, paragraphs of action. And I would do it that way, and it was very bare bones, and it was enough to get like the sort of layout. Film scripts, rather comic book scripts, there's basically like two schools of thought. There's something called full script, and there's something called Marvel style. Today we're going to be talking about full script, which is not too different from a film script, but basically you lay out the descriptions of panels, what happens in those panels, and then etc. And Marvel style is a lot more like free form, and it was the way that Stan Lee developed because he was writing so many projects. It was like just more of like a paragraph of an idea, person comes in, they do this, they do that. And it left a lot of it up to the artist, which is great because, if you're working with an artist who really understands your project and you're using them to their full potential, you can get a lot of creativity out of it. But it also makes a lot of questions of things like how much did the artist really like have to put in and contribute, and like what do they own, like if you're not like being judicious about your descriptions. So today we're going to be talking about full script style. And really like what's important is like the reason why Bendis says there's no industry standard, maybe it's Bendis, but the reason why Bendis says there is no industry standard is because the comic book industry is mostly made up by a bunch of independent creators like you, me, and yourself who kind of had ideas and found their way into it. And so, you want to do something that certainly is held to some kind of standard, but at the end of the day, your script is like really only intended to be read by you and your artist. And my friend who was critiquing my work very much encouraged me and said like, hey, this wasn't right in my world because I'm a film guy, but he was like, it's right in your world, and your artist saw that and it didn't make any difference on the result of his work. So if it's working for you, go ahead and do it. The programs you can use for script writing. So Final Draft would probably be considered the industry standard program. It's the script writing program if you've ever been in like film school. There's also another program called celtx, which is what I use, and I'm sure there's other stuff out there. I know there's other programs out there, But even if you're using Microsoft Word, even if you're using the Notes app on your phone, like as someone who works in the music industry, like do whatever it takes. Like it's not the tools. It's not the tools that gets it done. It's like the will. And so if you're comfortable writing in a program like Word or Celtx or whatever, use that. And the reason why I prefer Celtx to Final Draft is because, first of all, Celtx was free, and I believe you could still find the free version out there for download on the internet. It's not gonna be updated anymore, but you can still go and download a file of a script writing program, the original versions of Celtx, and it's gonna do more or less the same thing it always did. Now Celtx is on a subscription basis, and it's $20 a month, and I've been using that. And what I really like about Celtx is that it has a cloud. So I get very, how do you say, like I get like particular about like my writing mood. And so I don't have like a ritual like Stephen King where I come in and write in my domain every day. I work in this room, and I also make my videos in this room, and I do my scripts in this room, and sometimes that gets really daunting, and I just want to go outside, and so, or go to the library. And so that's why I like Celtx, because it has a cloud backup, and I can switch from my desktop to my laptop to my iPad. And sometimes I just write on my iPad, and so that's where I found Celtx the most helpful. And again, it has all the same features that Final Draft has. Final Draft, some people find it a little cost prohibitive because it's $250, but it's a one-time fee. And so, not for nothing, I pay $20 a month for Celtx, and that's the cost of 1 year of Final Draft, right? So like they kind of even out. When I was using Final Draft, it, like the old version of Celtx, it saves to your PC, and I guess you just store everything locally. You can also like pair it with Dropbox and like save revisions, but that was not like that user experience just like was too clunky for me, especially if you're switching from an iPad to no. So that's what you could even use Google Sheets, or is it called Sheets? Whatever their version of Microsoft Word is. Like you could use that if you're really into the whole cloud computing thing. Good for you. So as long as you're writing and staying encouraged and staying productive, I'm totally in the camp of do whatever is going to keep you encouraged and motivated, and keep moving from there. And last thing I'm going to say real quick about like industry standards, like in film school, like I've been in the situation where I have sent a script to like a real industry person, asking them to critique my work, and their first question to me was like, what program did you write this in? And I was like, I wrote it in Celtx. And they were like, come back to me when you wrote it in Final Draft. And I was like, okay, that you're not going to experience that, or most likely in the comic book industry, not that I'm in it, but Brian Bendis would say he'd probably call that gatekeeping. And I get it from a film perspective, because there is an industry standard and people want you to adhere to that standard, and it's the kind of thing that will set you apart. And if I was like an editor or whatever position and I was soliciting scripts, I might look at something that was not there yet, was not following industry conventions, and be like, this is out the door. That's not the case, because Dark Horse and Image and these companies don't accept scripts to begin with. If you've watched my other videos, how to pitch to Dark Horse or how to pitch to Image Comics, they don't accept scripts. I don't know about Marvel and DC. I haven't worked for them, and I don't think they mandate Marvel style by any means, even though that's a thing that there is. So, getting all that out of the way, let's talk about the layout of a film script. So the first thing to know, I work in basically film style. Not only is that what I learned, but it's like, I mean, I want to work in the film industry at some point in my life. So for me, it works to write in this way and stay close to a filmmaking perspective. And that way, like, if I ever need to transition back to it, it won't be very hard for me. Some programs like Celtx have templates, and I've seen things like you could even write a script in Excel and you could make it like a block grid and just be like page 1, panel 1, character description, whatever. You could do that. I'm going to show you my way of doing it. So a film script would normally go like this. Boo, boo, boo. Exterior, house, day. This is the scene heading, and this is like really done for the sake of the crew like knowing exactly what this is. Maybe, maybe we're getting more specific, like farmer's house or something. But that, and they need to know day because a day or night shoot is important in the film industry. And film works in such a way that the locations are consistent, so like I've kind of just like developed that in my own methods here, where like you have the location, but I might say something a little more specific because this is a comic. I might say rainy day to save myself some time, or overcast, or I don't know, like I just do it to stay in the mindset. You hit enter. Now you have the action. A man is walking down the street. Walking down the street. It's walking out his front door. Oh, yeah, exterior. So, walking out of his front door from inside the house. Front boy. I'm looking like a total professional right now. In film scripts, you would normally capitalize, like full caps, a character so that that it's just like known that the character is there, and like it's just like a way to like more quickly see who is present and like get to that stuff quicker. So a man is walking outside. Man, and this character might be named. He might be named Steven or Peter or whatever. But, this man walked by and, walks out his front door and says, "Hey, you," so when this is the dialogue, rather, this is the character and this is the dialogue. A feature that script writing programs have is this is called smart type. And so it will remember character names once you've put them in there, which is just helpful because, it saves you time, to have all the character names in there. So when you're doing a new, Barbara is outside doing farm work, and man, what are you doing? So it's just like a quick way to saves time in your process that it remembers these things. So you can also do something like the parenthetical, I don't know, angry, growling. I actually have a bad tendency to put the parenthetical like here, and like voiceover is something I'll do a lot. VO for voiceover. And it will remember that. And then I have this horrible issue where I'm always doing man VO or, character VO. So parenthetical will probably go better like somewhere. And then anything else I missed? So that's more or less the basic structure. And then you would hit tab twice if you're doing a film script, or tab, like you'll see here, very quickly cycles through all of the options you have. And the big one here is, so there, oh, there's parenthetical. Okay. I'm learning how to use this in real time. And then you would do something like cut to, or fade to, or if you're George Lucas, wipe wipe to, or like star transition, or whatever those like PowerPoint presentation slides George Lucas is really fond of. But yeah, like that's the only thing that doesn't carry over from a comic book script into a film script is transitions, right? You don't need that because it's not a real thing. Comic book, like we don't need scene transitions because there is no motion of the camera. So like looking at one of my scripts real quick, I try and keep the format. Like a lot of the times I will write this and I will still write it very bare bones, and I will just get everything as basic as I can across. I'll be like a city skyline, voiceover. I'm always writing, like the first draft I do is always pouring my brain out onto the page as quickly as possible, and then I will usually come back and add the detail and do the work to like meet the formatting. I mean, if you are a prose author, perhaps you are, a better lover of language, and crafting that sentence structure is very important to you. But I have like a tendency to come back and fix things like 2 or 3 times just so that my script is pretty dialed in. And so you'll see here, like in the scene heading, all I add is, instead of exterior, day, I do page 1, panel 1, exterior, city, day. And then what I tend to do as well is include a description of the panel. And, I'm pretty lazy here, so it's just this whole page is quarter panels, quarter horizontal panels across the page. And so, I give the description of the city. I have the character talking in voiceover, which maybe again would have been better done in parenthetical. Now I know, I've been out of school for a while. Page 1, panel 2, exterior, alley, night, quarter panel across page, the silhouette of a girl walking towards the viewer, page 1, panel 3. And like, and the only other thing here is like caption. So, like the artist can usually assume like, yeah, character dialogue is just like the dialogue that comes out of their mouths, right? And if it's voiceover, it's going to be like a rectangular box instead of a circular box. And then if it's a caption, again, it's like it's either in a rectangular thing, or maybe your artist isn't putting it in a box. Maybe it's just text on the page. You could also like, I've done these before as like SFX for sound effects, boom or thwip or whatever. For the most part, there's been very few, if ever, times I've had to describe to my artist what I meant. They get it, right? I think we all speak the same language in these regards, and so it's been really helpful. But like, as long as your artist is understanding you and they're getting the outcome that you desired, then there you go. And how about this? I'll go and show this page real quick. Is that not everything I just described to you? So, that's where, as long as you're getting what you want, your thoughts are getting put across and understood, then you're doing your job correctly. So the only other bits of advice I'm going to add in here that you might have that I could just see living in the comments section of this video already, page count. So when I was a youngling, I was reading, like, The Walking Dead was my favorite book. And so when I was like really taking, I used to just write a story, I would write it and I'd get what I needed to out there, and then that was it. When I was reading The Walking Dead, I just went and counted how many pages were in each issue. It was always 22 pages. Now, that was either standard at the time, or, if you watched my recent video, standard for Robert Kirkman, because he says in his pitch it's going to be 22 pages each month. Nowadays, 28 or really like 32 is normal for most books, but it really depends. So either is like acceptable. Unless you're working for a publisher like Marvel or DC, they're going to tell you how many pages it needs to be. Books are normally, they have to be printed in a number divisible by 4, because piece of paper folded over has 4 sides, right? So as long as you're working in those parameters, it can really be whatever length you want it to be, but 28 would be safe. And actually, my recent book, I did 22 pages because that's what I learned. That was outdated. So I went and added 6 pages, but also, my artist had some of the pages I stuffed a bit. So he made some like into larger scenes. And so I have 30 pages. And so now I'm going to have to add 2. Okay. And I kind of like that flexibility though. Like I have a tendency to already write, I write the scenes in such a sequence that like, if you had to put something in there that you could, like, I try not to transition scenes on one page because of that reason. Like if I need to add a page, we're going to have to like redo the artwork. And so that mindset I have already paid off, and I was able to like very easily add scenes. And I was pleasantly surprised because I felt limited by the 22 pages. And so now that I'm in the 28 pages for my first issue, there's just more time to breathe, and it's just not as, it was like really tight, like really fast paced. And so I was a lot happier with the 28 pages, and I'm actually really excited that I'm going to beef it up to 32 pages. So I'm looking forward to, having it totally done. The other thing is panels per page. So typically 6 is like a safe bet of what you can fit into a page. There's plenty of comic book pages that are more or less. I have a lot of pages, like, 4 feels comfortable for me. If there's something that's really important, I give it a whole page to itself. I even have a 2-page spread in my upcoming book. And so really just depends like what kind of narrative you want to do. And I've seen pages that stuff like 9 or 11 panels into the page, depending on what you're showing, right? If it's like an action sequence and it's just like, I don't know, like people fighting over a gun, like that could be a lot more panels. But if you're trying to have things that still maintain dialogue and, like shot composition is important to you, 6 is like where you're kind of starting to like push it. And then also word count. It's typically advised like 35 is about the max, like 40's pushing it. And I think it's something like 20, like similarly 28 pages, 28 words. So you want to try and keep things lean. And quite honestly, like a lot of comic book authors don't get married to their dialogue because in a lot of ways, the descriptions are there, but once you see the artwork and how it's laid out, you might go back and redo the dialogue and find something that's more fitting for the scene. So yeah, guys, that's really all I have to say about that today. I hope that this video was useful to you and that you learned something. I mean, I even think I learned a couple things, now that I'm looking at it a little more critically and reminding myself of the rules. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm really enjoying, the interactions I'm getting from these videos. Thank you so much, by the way, to 300 plus subscribers on this channel, which most of you have shown up in the last month. This channel's been growing very quickly over a short period of time. Very grateful for that and really encouraged. I very much enjoy the feedback that we're getting and, the people who are finding these things useful. So I'm just happy to keep doing it. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm sure there's things that I missed in this video, as I always say. I'd be willing to do a deeper dive or maybe even like a live stream of this or something. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.